This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network.
We are TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
For what profit is it unto us, if there be promised us an immortal time, whereas we have done the works that bring death, and that there is promised us an everlasting hope, whereas ourselves, being most wicked, are made vain, and that there are laid up for us dwellings of health and safety, whereas we have lived wickedly, and that the glory of the Most High is kept to defend them which have led a weary life, whereas we have walked in the most wicked ways of all, and that there should be showed a paradise whose fruit endureth forever, wherein is security and medicine, since we shall not enter into it. For we have walked in unpleasant places, and that the faces of them which have used abstinence shall shine above the stars, whereas our faces shall be blacker than darkness. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Secrets Revealed here on Truth Frequency Radio. This evening, I'm going to be speaking about what happens after death and dying, and what occurs for the soul, the spirit. And I know that this is a confusing topic for a lot of people, especially when you only read from the canonical materials, because it seems that once a person has left their body, most people believe that there's no thought and no being, and that there's only quiet until our bodies being resurrected at the end of days with the great throne judgment, that then we are brought before the Most High God before Yahushua for judgment and for determination as to whether we will be counted and numbered amongst the elect. And so this evening, I wanted to share with you some passages for consideration, which, in my opinion, elaborate upon this whole theme and will give you greater insight into what a soul may be confronted with after giving up the ghost or leaving the flesh. From what I've studied and what I've looked at, I do believe that there is an immediate confrontation with the angels of both paradise and Sheol, and that they wager in accusation for the judgment of the soul, and that the guardian angel that is assigned with each one of us, that it is also brought forth to testify and to lay accusation or to defend a soul from conviction by the accuser and by the angels of perdition. And that so long as one is measured in manner that finds one worthy and righteous, in my opinion, that person will be allowed to join the patriarchs and the prophets and the apostles which have gone on before us, and to go into New Jerusalem, to the place of rest, until they are unified again with their body. And at the end of days, there will be a greater reckoning, that there will be a final judgment, which then determines whether one will be counted in the grace and the salvation that Christ extends so generously to all of us. And so I'll share some passages from different texts which give insight into these particular moments, and specific as to what happens in the afterlife. And also, I will share some passages which also give greater clarity: white throne judgment, the where every knee shall bow, every tongue confess, and all angels, humanity, those that rebelled against the Most High, the 1/3 that fell with Lucifer, that all are brought and bound and prostrated before the Lord, before Christ, and that he being worthy, that's when harvest ensues, and the wicked are gathered for burning, and the wheat for preservation. And I'm not talking about specific with regard to the rapture, because that, in my opinion, or the catching away, that, in my opinion, occurs with the seventh trump, and that when the angels sound the trumpet, and this occurs on Yom Teruah, the feast of trumpets, which will be what occurs on a waxing crescent in the month of Tishri, that the announcement that the kingdoms of this world, which until that time have been under the authority of Satan the adversary, and the rulers of darkness, the powers, the principalities, that have been given temporary reign over this world and this duality. Here, where we learn through good and evil, the knowledge of good and evil, light and darkness, pain and pleasure, will be ended, and that there will be 1,000-year millennial reign, where New Jerusalem, descending down out from the what is now the top of the vaulted dome, that the heavenly temple and the throne room of the Most High God, that the place of the righteous is there. It will descend down here to the earth, and those that are counted worthy will be allowed to enter therein for what will be that 1,000 years of grace. And it represents the seventh day, the Sabbath, and the day of rest. And so, and also I want to thank Bradley for sending a certain passage that I'll share with those of you this evening to give you, which was about this, and he piqued my interest to do this show and to share with you as listening audience about this particular subject. And this will also, looking at and examining these particular texts, it will also bring insight into what is the near death experience. Because a lot of people knowing about and hearing about and they don't understand, um, and don't believe. For those that believe that, there's no consciousness after death until until we're regathered for a restoration of our former being. um, they don't believe the stories that people tell of going on and experiencing both being witness to and being taken to either paradise or Sheol. But many of these people that having these near death experiences and coming back, especially if they were wicked previously, that certainly they believe something occurred to them, because many of them will immediately turn and change every aspect of who they were prior, especially if they were wicked. And having the experiencing of going to hell and being redeemed by Christ and brought forth out of that, and knowing that that could have been your eternity, well, certainly if you have chance to alter your tendency, you will hopefully utilize that opportunity to make better of yourself. And we see that this indeed is what occurs for many people. There's many different stories of many different individuals that tell of being and experiencing the torment of Sheol and seeing the horror, the frightening presence of the angels of perdition, and their lashing out and they're punishing those that are held in their terrain and bound within their care, if that's indeed what you can call it, care. But also, you see that those that experience paradise and that come back and tell the stories of what they had seen in meeting loved ones that have since departed, in learning stories of, and in speaking with these past loved ones, um, they learn things which they could not otherwise have known. I forget the movie, but it was about a young boy that had passed, and he was a preacher's son. And the young boy told, when he had come back, he told the story of what he had experienced and how he had met his sister and his grandparents and others that were in heaven awaiting them. And telling this story to his father and his mother, they realized that he was speaking about not the sister that was alive in body and that was with them here on the earth, but that the mother had had a miscarriage some years prior, and that the young boy was speaking about this sister that had not survived and that had already gone on to be with the Most High. And of course, that was for them a confirming witness because he didn't know and they had never discussed it with him. And they realized once, they came to that realization that this is what he was speaking about. And so that was very much a confirming witness for them as to the authenticity of his experience and that he wasn't just making up something or that, you know, he was whatever, just telling stories, but that there was some truth behind what he was sharing with them. If somebody in the chat room knows what I'm talking about, the movie I'm speaking about, please relate it so I can share it with the rest of everybody because it was a deeply touching movie, and it was one that restored hope for the families and the congregation and the people around this young child who, hearing about what he was telling them, were deeply moved and also had their faith, if it had faltered in any way, that their faith was reinvigorated. This seems to be heaven is for real. Thank you. I appreciate that. And so the movie is Heaven is for real. And so please check out that movie when you get a chance. It's worth your time to watch it. But this seems to be the experience for a lot of people when they come back with tales of what they had experienced in having these near death experiences. And that, again, it deeply, profoundly affects them and mostly for the better. you, you don't usually hear of somebody coming back from such experience and then deciding to be wicked. That's not the way it works. It's the other way around 100%. And those that know that they have been spared from the darkness and from being punished in Sheol for what could have been rest of their immortality, um, they quickly change their ways and they take up the study of the gospel and they seek out a deeper relationship with the Most High God, having confronted and met, having met Him, the Holy Spirit, the Father and the Son, that they devote and commit whatever time they have yet remaining to making changes which fall in line with the commandments and with the gospel and with the example that Christ established for all of us in coming into the flesh and showing to us how we should be to each other and one another, and even to that of our enemies. That we should always deal in relationship with others and the world and the creatures and even nature in loving manner and in forgiveness. That we should embrace people and treat everyone that we come across as if they are the last person we will ever see. And that this moment and this day could truly be our last. And so we're not guaranteed any more tomorrows. We're not guaranteed to go to sleep tonight and wake up tomorrow. And so recognizing our mortality, that we should utilize every new day, every new dream as blessing. Because truly, that's what life is the greatest, most profound, and deepest blessing. And that those of us that are alive and part of existence and going and having the opportunity to go about our everyday, to be with our loved ones, to commune with our friends, to share and break bread and enjoy meal and conversation with families and friends, and even passing acquaintance, that all of that is true blessing and opportunities which we should not overlook in just quaint passing, but that we should really understand just how really sacred every moment of life is. And even though being here and being tested and tried by the evil of the New World Order elites that have been warring against humanity since the beginning, since even before our incarnating the flesh, the war in heaven, and all of that happening and taking place. And we see that the world is getting crazy and that things are out of hand and that good is evil and evil is good. Even with all of that, still, just the blessings, the miracle of every day is so deeply profound. And if we recognize that and we aligned ourselves with that more and, just left everything else, that all the insanity, just give it up to God and allow Him to deal with, because He will, all of that insanity and not let it burden us in a tremendous manner, then we would recognize just the beauty of life. And I know it's difficult, especially for those of us that have awakened to the New World Order and to what's going on, that there's an agenda for depopulation and that the seed of the serpent, the rulers of darkness, wickedness in high places, these powers, the principalities, that they are plotting at every turn of the way to just create chaos and to destroy innocents and to slaughter people. Even with all of that, there still is a higher calling, a higher purpose, and a higher reason for our being here. And truly, God is in control. And the passage that I read at the very beginning, um, it was to show, just the futility of being wicked and why it is that we want to commit ourselves to being good people and to following the ordinances of the Most High God as He laid it out for us in the scriptures. All right, we'll be right back and then we'll get into the text. All right, welcome back, everybody. The first text that I'd like to bring forth and for your um, consideration is a text called "The Vision of Paul," which is one of my most favorites. And the reason it is because it gives such great detail on the place of the righteous and the place of the wicked and what occurs after somebody succumbs to death. And it even gives you a vision where the angel shows Paul what occurs to a righteous person as well as to what occurs to a wicked person after they leave the body. And as I said, there is a guardian angel that is assigned to each one of us. And throughout our lifetimes, they keep tally on the things that we do while we are in the flesh, which is why it says within the scripture that even the things like those that are wicked and those that are evil, the things that they do in darkness and they think that nobody is around to see them, that the guardian angel is taking note, and that everything we do while in the flesh, our every thought, action, and deed, those things are related and they are written down into the books of life. And those things, this is why it says at the end of days that the books are opened and that it will be even our own words, our own behaviors, our own actions that bring accusation against us. And it is from the notes and those things that are related by the angels to the Most High God and to those that keep the records on each one of us, that all these things are brought out and revealed and considered when the soul is weighed in judgment. And so this book will give you insight into that and bring forth in greater clarity than most others with regard to the moments after death and dying as they occur to other individuals. And so we'll start with this. I've got numerous passages from many different texts that I'd like to share with you. We probably won't get to all of them, but I'll try to share what I can. And if I need to, we'll do a follow up show to this because I would like to cover it in great detail. And in doing so, I think for those of us that are Christians that have prioritized the kingdom, that have dedicated our lives to seeking truth and to finding answer within the gospel, and that are in that way developing relationship with the Most High God, that this will encourage you even that much more. And that for those of you that may not be on this walk and that have not yet really dedicated yourselves to higher purpose, role, and mission for being here, that it might encourage you to consider doing so, which is, part of the Great Commission, in my opinion, for all of us in trying to really reach people and assist them in making decisions about their eternity. Know therefore, sons of men, that whatever things are wrought by you, these angels relate to God, whether good or evil. And the angel answered and said unto me, Follow me, and I will show you the place of the just, where they are led when they are deceased. And after these things, taking thee into the abyss, I will show thee the souls of sinners and what sort of place they are led into when they have deceased. And I proceeded back after the angel, and he led me into heaven. And I looked back upon the firmament, and I saw in the same place power. And there was there oblivion, which deceives and draws down to itself the hearts of men, and the spirit of detraction, and the spirit of fornication, and the spirit of madness, and the spirit of insolence. And there were there the princes of vices. These I saw under the firmament of heaven. Remember, I told you that the place of the righteous is above the firmament, where the Most High God is, in the third heaven. And the, you know, Sheol, the bottomless pit, both of these places are located. The gateway is located at the center of the plane of the earth, and that the mount of the congregation, what Jacob saw, Jacob's ladder, where the angels ascend and descend down into Sheol. This is at the North Pole, as I describe in Paradise, Sides of the North, and the Mount of the Congregation. I saw under the firmament in heaven, and again I looked back, and I saw angels without mercy, having no pity, whose countenance was full of madness, and their teeth sticking out beyond the mouth. Their eyes shone like the morning star of the east, and from the hairs of their head sparks of fire went out, or from their mouth. And I asked the angel, saying, Sir, who are those? And the angel answered and said unto me, These are those who are destined to the souls of the impious in the hour of need, who did not believe that they had the Lord for their helper, nor hoped in him. And I looked on high, and I saw other angels whose countenance shone as the sun, their loins girded with golden girdles, having palms in their hands, and the sign of God, clothed with garments in which was written the name of the Son of God, filled moreover with all meekness and pity. And I asked the angel, saying, Who are these, Lord, in so great beauty and pity? And the angel answered and said unto me, These are the angels of justice, who are sent to lead up the souls of the just in the hour of need, who believed that they had the Lord for their helper. And I said to him, Do the just and sinners necessarily meet witnesses when they have died? And the angel answered and said to me, There is one way by which all pass over to God, but the just, having their helper with them, are not confounded when they go to appear in the sight of God. And I said to the angel, I wish to see the souls of the just and of sinners going out of the world. And the angel answered and said unto me, Look down upon the earth. And I looked down from heaven upon the earth, and I saw the whole world, and it was nothing in my sight. And I saw the sons of men as though they were not, and a wanting. And I wondered and said to the angel, Is this the greatness of men? And the angel answered and said unto me, It is. And these are they who do evil from morning till evening. And I looked, and I saw a great cloud of fire spread over the whole world. And I said to the angel, What is this, my Lord? And he said to me, This is injustice stirred up by the princes of sinners. I, indeed, when I had heard this, sighed and wept, and I said to the angel, I wish to see the souls of the just and of sinners. and to see in what manner they go out of the body. And the angel answered and said unto me, Look again upon the earth. And I looked, and I saw all the world, and men were as naught and a wanting. And I looked carefully, and I saw a certain man about to die. And the angel said to me, This one whom thou seest is a just man. And I looked again, and I saw all his works, whatever he had done for the sake of God's name, and all his desires, both what he remembered and what he did not remember, they all stood in his sight in the hour of need. And I saw the just man advance in fine refreshment and confidence, and before he went out of the world, the holy and the impious angels both attended. And I saw them all, but the world, the holy, and I saw them all, but the impious found no place of habitation in him. But the holy took possession of his soul, guiding it till it went out of the body. And they roused the soul, saying, Body, whence thou goest out, for it is necessary that thou shouldst return to the same body on the day of the resurrection, that thou mayest receive the things promised to all the just. Receiving therefore the soul from the body, they immediately kissed it, as familiarly known to them, saying to it, Do manfully, for thou hast done the will of God while placed in the earth. And there came to meet him the angel who watched him every day, and said to him, Do manfully, soul, for I rejoice in thee, because thou hast done the will of God on earth. For I related to God all thy works, such as they were. Similarly, also the Spirit proceedeth to meet him, and said, Soul, fear not, nor be disturbed until thou comest into a place which thou hast never known. But I will be a helper unto thee, for I found in thee a place of refreshment in the time when I dwelt in thee while I was on the earth. And his spirit strengthened him, and his angel received him and led him into heaven. And an angel said, Whither runnest thou, O soul? And dost thou dare to enter into heaven? Wait and let us see if there is anything of ours in thee. And behold, we find nothing in thee. I see also thy divine helper, an angel, and the Spirit is rejoicing along with thee, because thou hast done the will of God on earth. And they led him along till he should worship in the sight of God. And when they had ceased, immediately Michael and all the army of angels with one voice adored the footstool of his feet, and his doom sang at the same time to the soul, This is your God of all things, who made you in his own image and likeness. Moreover, the angel returns and points him out, saying, God, remember his labors, for this is the soul whose works are related to thee, doing according to thy judgment. And the Spirit said likewise, I am the Spirit of vivification, inspiring him, for I had refreshment in him in the time when I dwelt in him, doing according to thy judgment. And there came the voice of God and said, Inasmuch as this man did not vex me, neither will I vex him. For according as he had pity I also will have pity. Let him therefore be handed over to Michael, the angel of the covenant, and let him lead him into paradise, that he himself may become co heir with all the saints. And after these things I heard the voices of 1,000,000 angels, and archangels, and cherubim, and 24 elders saying hymns, and glorifying the Lord, and crying, Thou art just, O Lord, and just are thy judgments, and there is no acceptance of persons with thee. But thou rewardest unto every man according to thy judgment. And the angel answered and said unto me, Hast thou believed and known that whatever each man of you has done, he sees in the hour of need? And I said, Yes, sir. And he saith to me, Look again down on the earth, and watch the soul of an impious man going out of the body, which vexed the Lord day and night, saying, I know nothing else in this world. I eat and drink and enjoy what is in the world. For who is there who has descended into hell, and ascending has declared to us that there is judgment there? And again I looked carefully, and I saw all the scorn of the sinner and all that he did, and they stood together before him in the hour of need. And it was done to him in that hour in which he was threatened about his body at the judgment. And I said, It were better for him if he hath not been born. And after these things, there came at the same time the holy angels and the malign, and the soul of the sinner and the holy angels did not find a place in it. Moreover, the malign angels cursed it, and when they had drawn it out of the body, the angels admonished it a third time, saying, O wretched soul, look upon thy flesh, whence thou camest out, for it is necessary that thou shouldst return to thy flesh in the day of resurrection, that thou mayest receive the due for thy sins and thy impieties. And when they had led it forth, the customary angel preceded it and said to it, O wretched soul, I am the angel belonging to thee, relating daily to the Lord thy malign works, whatever thou didst by night or day. And if it were in my power, not for one day would I minister to thee. But none of these things was I able to do. The judge is pitiful and just, and he himself commanded us that we should not cease to minister to the soul till you should repent, but thou hast lost the time of repentance. I, indeed, was strange to thee, and thou to me. Let us go on then to the just judge. I will not dismiss thee before I know from today why I was strange to thee. And the spirit confounded him, and the angel troubled him. When therefore they had arrived at the power, when he started to enter heaven, a labor was imposed upon him above all other labor. Error and oblivion and murmuring met him, and the spirit of fornication and the rest of the powers, and said to him, Whither goest thou, wretched soul? And darest thou to rush into heaven? Hold that we may see if we have our qualities in thee, since we do not see that thou hast a holy helper. And after that I heard voices in the height of heaven saying, Present, present that wretched soul to God, that it may know that it is God that it despised. When therefore it had entered heaven, all the angels saw it. 1,000,000 exclaimed with one voice, all saying, Woe to thee, wretched soul, for the sake of thy works which thou didst on earth. What answer art thou about to give to God, which thou shalt have approached to adore him? The angel who was with it answered and said, Weep with me, my beloved, for I have not found rest in this soul. And the angels answered him and said, Let such a soul be taken away from the midst of ours. For from the time he entered, the stink of him crosses to us angels. And after these things it was presented that it might worship in the sight of God. And an angel of God showed him God who made him after his own image and likeness. Moreover, his angel ran before him, saying, Lord God Almighty, I am the angel of this soul, whose works I presented to thee day and night, not doing according to thy judgment. And the Spirit likewise said, I am the Spirit who dwelt in it from the time it was made. In itself, moreover, I know it, and it has not followed my will. Judge it, Lord, according to thy judgment. And there came the voice of God to it and said, Where is thy fruit which thou hast made worthy of the goods which thou hast received? Have I put a distance of one day between thee and the just man? Did I not make the sun to arise upon thee as upon the just? But the soul was silent, having nothing to answer. And again there came a voice saying, Just is the judgment of God, and there is no acceptance of persons with God. For whoever shall have done mercy, on them shall he have mercy. And whoever shall not have pitied, neither shall God pity him. Let him therefore be handed over to the angel Tartaruk, who is set over the punishments, and let him place him in outer darkness, where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. And let him be there till the great day of judgment. And after these things I heard the voice of angels and archangels saying, Thou art just, Lord, and thy judgment is just. And again I saw, and behold, a soul which was led forward by two angels, weeping and saying, Have pity on me, just God, God the judge. For today is 7 days since I went out of my body, and I was handed over to these two angels. And they led me through to those places which I had never seen. And God the just judge saith to him, What hast thou done? For thou never didst mercy. Wherefore thou wast handed over to such angels as have no mercy, and because thou didst not do uprightly, so neither did they set piously with thee in the hour of thy need. Confess therefore thy sins which thou didst commit when placed in the world. And he answered and said, Lord, I did not sin. And the Lord, the just Lord, was angered in fury when it said, I did not sin, because it lied. And God said, Dost thou think thou art still in the world? If any one of you sinning there conceal and hide his sin from his neighbor, here indeed nothing whatever shall be hid. For when the souls come to adore in sight of the throne, both the good works and the sins of each one are made manifest. And hearing these things, the soul was silent, having no answer. And I heard the Lord God, the just judge, again saying, Come, angel of this soul, and stand in the midst. Wow. All right, we'll pick it up when we get back from break. Be right back, everyone. All right, welcome back, everybody, for a second hour. The time is just moving so very quickly. It seems like we are entered into those days where in the scriptures it says that um, unless the days be shortened, there should be no flesh left, but for the elect's sake, the days shall be shortened. And it seems like, at least to me, that time is accelerated and that, I don't know, just the days, the weeks, the months, the years, everything is just going by so quickly now. I don't know if you, all of you, have a sense of that, but seemingly that seems to be the way of it. And so, I'm your host, Sen Garcia. This is Secrets Revealed here on Truth Frequency Radio. And this evening we are discussing what occurs after um, the moments after death and dying, and the judgment that a soul goes to before what is the great white throne judgment. You notice that in the passage, that one of the passages that I read um, just recently, that it said that this was before the resurrection at the end of days, and that this would determine where you would be until that time. I'm looking to see. Well, anyways, you can review back. I'm not going to bother looking for it because there was so much that I had read, and there's so much more that I want to get through. So I'm going to continue reading from the Vision of Paul to try to finish up this segment. And then there's two more portions that I'd like to try to get through this evening. Because, again, in my opinion, I don't want to just tell you what I think or what I feel is correct with regard to my interpretation of scripture, but I want to give you the ancient sources themselves and give it to you verbatim, word for word, chapter by chapter, verse by verse, so that, especially for those of you that are not familiar with the many texts and books that we read from and that we share through our work at sacredwordpublishing.com. And so there's literally thousands of manuscripts. And so I wanted to share all this information with all of you. And hopefully it will inspire you to study and look too for clarity, because this is another one of those topics which remains ambiguous when only studying and reading from the canon. But when you look at even just the apocryphal text, you can gain so much more insight into death and dying, which I'll be looking at Second Esdras and Second Baruch as well, which are apocryphal texts. But I wanted to start with this one because, again, I think it brings it to you in greater clarity than most other manuscripts, and being one of my favorites. And it covers exactly what I'm talking about in giving you and showing you what happens to the soul of a just person as well as one that is wicked. I would also invite you to read from the Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2 to chapter 5. That gives you the account of what occurs to a just person as well as a wicked person as well, which I probably will get to that this evening. Come, angel of this soul, and stand in the midst. And the angel of the sinful soul came, having in his hands a manuscript, and said, These, Lord, in my hands are all the sins of the soul from his youth till today, from the 10th year of his birth. And if thou command, Lord, I will also relate his acts from the beginning of his 15th year. And the Lord God, the just judge, said, I say unto thee, angel, I do not expect of thee an account of him since he began to be 15 years old, but state his sins for 5 years before he died and before he came hither. And again, God, the just judge, said, For by myself I swear, and by my holy angels, and by my virtue, that if he had repented 5 years before he died, on account of 1 year's life, oblivion would now be thrown over all the evils which he sinned before, and he would have indulgence and remission of sins. Now indeed he shall perish. And the angel of the sinful soul answered and said, Lord, command that angel to exhibit those souls. And in that same hour the souls were exhibited in the midst, and the soul of the sinner knew them. And the Lord said to the soul of the sinner, I say unto thee, soul, confess thy work which thou wroughtest in these souls, whom thou seest when they were in the world. And he answered and said, Lord, it is not yet a full year since I slew this one, and poured his blood upon the ground. And with another, a woman, I committed fornication. Not this alone, but I also greatly harmed her in taking away her goods. And the Lord God, the just judge, said, Either thou didst not know that he who does violence to another, if he dies first who sustains the violence, is kept in this place until the doer of hurt dies. And then both stand in the presence of the judge, and now each receives according to his deed. And I heard a voice of one saying, Let that soul be delivered into the hands of Tartarus, and led down into hell. He shall lead him into the lower prison, and he shall be put in torments, and left there till the great day of judgment. And again I heard 1,000 angels saying hymns to the Lord, and crying, Thou art just, O Lord, and just are thy judgments. The angel answered and said unto me, Hast thou perceived all these things? And I said, Yes, sir. And he said to me, Follow me again, and I will take thee and show thee the place of the just. And I followed the angel, and he raised me to the third heaven and placed me at the entry of the door. And looking carefully, I saw, and the door was of gold, and two columns of gold, full above of golden letters. And the angel turned again to me and said, Blessed weft thou if thou hadst entered into these doors, for it is not allowed to any to enter except only to those who have goodness and innocence of body in all things. And I asked the angel about everything and said, Sir, tell me on what account these letters are put upon those tables. The angel answered and said unto me, These are the names of the just, serving God with their whole heart, who dwell on the earth. And again I said, Sir, therefore their names and countenances and the likeness of these who serve God are in heaven and are known to the angels, for they know who are the servants of God with all their heart. And when I had entered the interior of the gate of paradise, there came out to meet me an old man, whose countenance shone as the sun. And when he had embraced me, he said, Hail, Paul, beloved of God. And he kissed me with a cheerful countenance. He wept, and I said to him, Brother, why dost thou weep? And again, sighing and lamenting, he said, We are hurt by men, and they vex us greatly. For many are the good things which the Lord has prepared, and great is his promise, but many do not perceive them. And I asked the angel and said, Sir, who is this? And he said to me, This is Enoch, the scribe of righteousness. And I entered into the interior of that place, and immediately I saw the sun, and coming it saluted me, laughing and rejoicing. And when it had seen me, it turned away and wept, and said to me, Paul, would thou shouldst receive thy labors which thou hast done in the human race. For me, indeed, I have seen the great and many good things which God has prepared for the just. And the promise of God are great, but many do not perceive them. But even by my many labors, scarcely one or two enter into these places. The vision of Paul. And as I said, it goes into great detail as to the city of God, New Jerusalem, how the other apostles were there. Um, even speaks of Eve and Mary. And so I do recommend people read that text. It's greatly detailed. It's a beautiful rendition. There are a couple different renderings of it, and I think it will bless your life. All right. What I want to read now is from Second Baruch, and it's about our glorified being and being restored to our former estate and being, when Paul speaks of in Second Thessalonians about our bodies being changed in the twinkling of an eye. Well, this particular text goes into greater detail as to what that passage glances over very quickly, um, and gives us, again, greater insight into what is being spoken of and the context of what is being spoken of in that particular text. And so this is Second Baruch chapter 48. We'll begin with verse 48. Which again, this is an apocryphal text. It's very detailed as well. I would also add that there's another book that gives great detail on the same things that I've read from the vision of Paul and what I'll be reading from here, and it's in the Chronicles of Jeremiah. It also tells you and shows you what happens to a just man and a wicked person, as the wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2 on. And so and I'll be reading more from the Chronicles of Jeremiah at some point, but I do recommend people check that one out as well. And he answered and said to me, But now let us cease talking about the wicked and inquire about the righteous. And I will tell thee about their blessedness, and I shall not be silent about their splendor which is kept for them. For surely, as you endured much labor in the short time in which you lived in this passing world, so you will receive great light in that world which has no end. But further I ask you, O Yahweh, the mighty one, and I shall ask free, unmerited, and pardon from you who created all things. In which shape will the living live in your day? Or how will remain their splendor which will be after that? Will they perhaps take again this present form? And will they put on the chained members which are in evil and by which evils are accomplished? Or will you perhaps change these things which have been in the world, as also the world itself? And he answered and said to me, listen, Baruch, to this word, and write down in the memory of your heart all that ye shall learn. For the earth will surely give back the dead at that time. It receives them now in order to keep them, not changing anything in their form, but as it has received them, so it will give them back. And as I have delivered them, it so will it raise them. For then it will be necessary to show those who live that the dead are living again, and that those who went away have come back. And it will be that when they have recognized each other, those who know each other at this moment, then my judgment will be strong, and those things which have been spoken of, and it will happen after this day which I appointed is over, that both the shape of those who are found to be guilty, as also the splendor of those who prove us to be righteous, will be changed. For the shape of those who now act wickedly will be made more evil than it is now, so that they shall suffer torment. Also, as for the honor and splendor of those who prove to be righteous on account of my Torah, those who possessed intelligence in their life, and those who planted the root of wisdom in their heart, their honor and splendor will then be magnified by transformations, and the shape of their face will be changed into the light of their beauty, so that they may acquire and receive the undying world which is promised to them. Therefore, especially they who will then come will be sad, because they despise my Torah and stop their ears lest they hear wisdom and receive intelligence. When they therefore will see that those over whom they are exalted now will then be more exalted and magnified than they, then both these and those will be changed. These into the honor and splendor of Malachim, and those into startling visions and horrible shapes, and they will waste away even now. For they will first see, and then they will go away to be tormented. Miracles, however, will appear at their own time to those who are saved because of their works, and to whom the Torah is now a hope, an intelligence, explanation, and a wisdom of trust. For they shall see that world which is now invisible to them, and they will see a time which is now, and that time will no longer make them older. For they will live in the heights of that world, and they will be like the Malachim, and be equal to the stars, and they will be changed into any shape which they wished, from beauty to loveliness, and from light to the splendor of honor. For the extents of kingdom paradise will be spread out for them, and to them will be shown the beauty of the majesty of the living beings under the throne, as well as all the hosts of the Malachim, those who are held by my word, now lest they show themselves, and those who are withheld by my command, so that they may stand in their places until their coming has arrived. And the excellence of the righteous will then be greater than that of the Malachim. For the first will receive the last, those whom they expected, and the last, those of whom they had heard that they had gone away. For they have been saved from this world of affliction, and have put down the burden of anguishes, because of which men lost their life, and for what have those who were on the earth exchanged their soul? For once they chose for themselves that time which cannot pass away without afflictions, and they chose for themselves that time of which the end is full of lamentations and evils. And they have denied the world that does not make those who come to it older, and they have rejected the time which causes splendor, so that they are not coming to the splendor of which I spoke to you before. Now, there's a lot of where the prophets asked in similarity about the afterlife and about the world to come and about what happens on the day of the great throne judgment. And so I'll share with you from Second Esdras, and if we have time, from the questions of Ezra, which also goes into this particular explanation of what occurs after death. I would also recommend another text called The Ascension of Isaiah, which speaks about the crowns and the thrones and the glorified body that is reserved for those that are numbered with the righteous. And you know how it also says in scriptures that we shall judge the angels? Well, in my opinion, that is specific to the fall of Lucifer and the one third of the angels of the Most High, which joined him in rebellion, that in their attempt to rule and have kingdoms of their own to rule, that wanting to be like the Most High, they were cast out of the upper heavens. And even the 200 watchers that joined them later in rebellion, that um, promising to come here and to teach humanity about the mysteries of heaven, they lusted after the daughters of Cain and immediately made a pact to take wives of all which they chose and to bring forth children from them. And because of that, they were sentenced and judged in great condemnation. But they knew, they were told before they ever came. And again, you can find great detail of this in the Kebra Nagast, chapter 100, concerning the fall of the angels, as to why they were punished so greatly. Because God told them before they came here to the earth, before He put them into the flesh, do not deny me, do not fall away. You're challenging me to put you into the flesh, and I'm going to do it, but do not fall away and don't lie to me now. Honor your word and be a servant unto humanity. But instead, they lusted after the daughters of Cain and they decided to involve themselves and to seek after pleasure. And for that, they fell. I mean, it was like, you know, the whole temptation of the Garden of Eden, the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil for them. All right, we'll be right back for final thing. All right, welcome back, everybody, for final portion. Gonna try to make it through the second, what will be second Esdras, chapter 7, which also gives consideration with regard to the end of days and why it is that we should honor his Torah and to read and study from it, as well as why we should be righteous individuals living in the example that Christ established for all of us and being foot washers unto humanity. And so, second Ezra chapter 7, start with verse 20. For there be many that perish in this life, because they despise the law of God that is set before them. For God hath given straight commandments to such as came, what they should do to live, even as they came, and what they should observe to avoid punishment. Nevertheless, there were not obedient unto him, but spake against him, and imagined vain things, and deceived themselves by their wicked deeds, and said of the Most High that he is not, and knew not his ways. The reason I started with those verses is because God provided us the Bible, and not just the Bible, but all of these other ancient manuscripts, literally thousands of ancient sources which speak about his majesty and show us in relationship of those that were his followers in feeding the flock, in tending the sheep, like the shepherds, um, how we should be with each other and with one another. And it's the basis, the whole basis of the Ten Commandments is love. You know, where it says in the scriptures that uh, to love your God as you love yourself and to love your neighbor as you love yourself and as you love your God, that love is the whole of the law. That those two, which are the two main commandments, you know, two of the main out of the 10, um, that love is the whole of the law. And that really the 10 commandments are given in order to guide us and direct humanity in treating each other with mutual respect and honoring the sanctity of life that has been given to each one of us, that all of us being blessed by the abundance and the bounty and the just miracle of each day that God has provided for all of us, that we should honor each other and the things that God has done for ourselves and everyone else. Because he has just poured out the abundance on everybody. And so, you know, it's to recognize um, and to not covet and to not harm others, to not murder, steal, cheat, lie, false accusations, All those things are to guide us into staying and respecting in love the bounty and the blessings he's poured out on all of us. And we shouldn't, because some, yes, are more blessed than others, but the way that it works, and when you really understand it, because it's also conveyed in the scriptures, is that the more you give, the more you receive, which is totally contrary to what we are taught in the whole scheme of competing with one another, and the way that uh, business is established, and especially the way that the Illuminati, that they teach. And I was reading not long ago. My daughter-in-law Joy just released a book on the origins of the Freemasons and the Knights Templar. And in reading that book, it instructs you, to be devious and to stab, to gain the trust and to stab um, those that trusted you in the back in moments of opportunity, so that you can get ahead, and you can also bring them down in getting ahead. And I mean, that's the way, that business and competition is established. And that's the way we are taught by society and materialism manner to get ahead and to crush the opposition. But, again, that is really not the real way. It, okay, yeah, it works temporary for the elite, and it's only because Satan is the god of this world for right now, and that they have established, that um, they are above the law and that they can get away with even things like pedophilia, and I mean just all kind of abomination that they're involved in. But they're going to be judged for all those things. And at some point, there's going to be repercussions for their actions. And they may not realize it now, like all these, you know, celebrities and sports and music um, people that sell out to the Illuminati and that knowingly involve themselves in satanic or Luciferian worship. There's going to be a reckoning that, yeah, okay, they get invited to all the big parties and all these where these grand orgies are taking place, and they think that all that is glamorous and that's the world to be in, and how just lucky and privileged that they are. But that fame has a price, and the price is their eternity. And there's nothing worth selling out your soul. There will be a time, it may not be until they die, but there will be a time where they will regret the actions, the behaviors, the world that they lived in, giving up and allying themselves to such evil. And so this is what all of that is about. So continuing. And deceive themselves by their wicked deeds, and said of the Most High that he is not, and knew not his ways. But his law have they despised, and denied his covenants. In his statutes have they not been faithful, and have not performed his works. And therefore, Esdras, for the empty are empty things, and for the full are the full things. Behold, the time shall come that these tokens which I have told thee shall come to pass, And the bride shall appear, and she coming forth shall be seen, that now is withdrawn from the earth. And whosoever is delivereth from the foresaid evil shall see my wonders. For my son Jesus shall be revealed with those that be with him, and they that remain shall rejoice within 400 years. And after these years shall my son Christ die, and all men that have life. And the world shall be turned into the old silence 7 days, like is in the former judgments, so that no man shall remain. And after 7 days, the world that yet awaketh not shall be raised up, and that shall die that is corrupt. And the earth shall restore those that are asleep in her, and so shall the dust, those that dwell in silence and the secret places, shall deliver those souls that were committed unto them. And the Most High shall appear upon the seat of judgment, and misery shall pass away, and the long suffering shall have an end. But judgment only shall remain, truth shall stand, and faith shall wax strong. And the work shall follow, and the reward shall be showed, and the good deeds shall be of force, and wicked deeds shall bear no rule. Then said I, Abraham prayed first for the Sodomites, and Moses for the fathers that sinned in the wilderness, and Jesus after him for Israel in the time of Achan, and Samuel and David for the destruction, and Solomon for them that should come to the sanctuary, and Helias for those that received rain, and for the dead that might live, and Ezekias for the people in the time of Sennacherib, and many for many. Even so now, seeing corruption has grown up and wickedness increased, and the righteous have prayed for the ungodly. Wherefore shall it not be so now also? He answereth me and said, this present life is not the end where much glory doth abide. Therefore have they prayed for the weak. But the day of doom shall be the end of this time, and the beginning of immortality for to come, wherein corruption is past. Intemperance is at an end, infidelity is cut off, righteousness is grown, and truth sprung up. Then shall no man be able to save him that is destroyed, nor to oppress him that hath gotten the victory. I answered then and said, this is my first and last saying, that it had been better not to have given the earth unto Adam, or else, when it was given him, to have restrained him from sinning. For what profit is it for men now in this present time to live in heaviness, and after death to look for punishment? O thou Adam, what hast thou done? For though it was thou that sinned, thou art not fallen alone, but we all that come of thee. For what profit is it unto us if there be promised us an immortal time, whereas we have done the works that bring death? And that there is promised us an everlasting hope, whereas ourselves, being most wicked, are made vain, and that there are laid up for us dwellings of health and safety, whereas we have lived wickedly, and that the glory of the Most High is kept to defend them which have led a weary life, whereas we have walked in the most wicked ways of all, and that there should be showed a paradise whose fruit endureth forever, wherein is security and medicine, since we shall not enter into it. For we have walked in unpleasant places, and that the faces of them which have used abstinence shall shine above the stars, whereas our faces shall be blacker than darkness. For while we lived and committed iniquity, we considered not that we should begin to suffer for it after death. Then answered he me and said, This is the condition of the battle which man that is born upon the earth shall fight, that if he be overcome, he shall suffer as thou hast said. But if he get the victory, he shall receive the things that I say. For this is the life whereof Moses spake unto the people while he lived, saying, Choose thee life that thou mayest live. Nevertheless, they believed not him, nor yet the prophets after him, nor, no, nor me, which have spoken unto them, that there should not be such heaviness in their destruction, as shall be joy over them that are persuaded to salvation. I answered then and said, I know, Lord, that the Most High is called merciful, in that he may hath mercy upon them which are not yet come into the world, and upon those also that turn to his law, and that he is patient and long suffering, those that have sinned as his creatures, and that he is bountiful, for he is ready to give where it needeth, and that he is of great mercy, for he multiplieth more and more mercies to them that are present, and that are past, and also to them which are to come. For he shall not multiply his mercies, for if he shall not multiply his mercies, the world would not continue without them that inherit therein. And he pardoneth, for if he did not so of his goodness, that they which have committed iniquities might be eased of them, the 10,000th part of men should not remain living. And being judged, if he should not forgive them that are cured with his word, and put out the multitude of contentions, there should be very few left peradventure in an innumerable multitude. It's interesting to me that he said a 10,000th portion. And the reason I bring that up, or a 10,000th part of men should not remain living, is because Christ in the book of Thomas, he said, I will call you one from 1,000, two from 10,000. And so he, that's about a 10,000 portion. So most are not in, according to that particular text, that particular verse, not worthy and not included in the salvation that Christ offered and extended to all people. I'm going to share one more portion from chapter 8, and this will give you an idea as to why it is you want to be righteous so that you can be numbered with the elect, because the elect is but a few. Many are chosen, but few heed the call. And he answered me, saying, The Most High hath made this world for many, but the world to come for few. I will tell thee a similitude, Esdras, as when thou askest the earth, it shall say unto thee, that it giveth much mold whereof earthen vessels are made, but little dust that gold cometh of. Even so is the course of this present world. There be many created, but few shall be saved. So answered I and said, Swallow then down, O my soul, understanding, and devour wisdom. For thou hast agreed to give ear, and art willing to prophesy, for thou hast no longer space than only to live. O Lord, if thou suffer not thy servant that we may pray before thee, and thou give us seed unto our heart and culture to our understanding, that there may come fruit of it, how shall each man live that is corrupt, who beareth the place of a man? For thou art alone, and we all one workmanship of thine hands, like as thou hast said. For when the body is fashioned now in the mother's womb, and thou givest its members, thy creature is preserved in fire and water, and 9 months does thy workmanship endure thy creature which is created in her. But that which keepeth and is kept shall both be preserved, and when the time cometh, the womb preserved delivereth up the thing. I'm going to stop here. Um, if if you want to read, you can read on and on and on from chapter 7 and chapter 8 and on in Second Esdras, or what is for Ezra. It goes into great detail about the judgment and the reckoning, and why it is that we should honor the promise of the kingdom, and why it is that we should recognize that this life, even though, yes, it is partially about, you know, leaving a legacy, having children, passing on your name, and acquiring bounty, that's not the main focus. That's not the main purpose of our being here. That is also part of the blessings of being human, and to have progeny and to have children and to leave an inheritance to them. But salvation and securing your eternity through Christ, that is the main purpose, the main goal. And if you miss that, you missed everything. If you are not secure in your relationship with Christ as Savior Messiah, you've missed the whole point. That is the whole purpose of our coming into this world, and of having the opportunities to study and to read the gospel and to come to knowledge and discernment on these things that I've been speaking about here in this show and the many other shows that I always talk about. And so my hope is that all of you come to remembrance on the larger, the deeper, the more profound aspects of our being here in the flesh, that we are in a fallen form and living in a fallen world. But that part of us, the spirit, that immortal aspect of us that gives our body life, warmth, our breath, warmth, that aspect of us, our consciousness, that portion of us that goes on to dreams at night when we leave our physicality, and we go sometimes meet with God in dreams. It's that aspect of us that can go on to eternity. And this is why it's so important, in my opinion, to study the scriptures and to study the prophecies and to dedicate time to doing so. Because in doing so, that's when you will be brought to discernment on these things that I'm speaking about this evening. And again, the most important thing is eternal life. salvation of soul. And that comes through Christ, because he is the way, the truth, and the life. He defeated death. He is the arbiter. He holds the keys of life and death. And it is through him and the judgment that he will levy upon us at the end of days to break open the books of life and to then bring forth all of our actions, our behaviors, our intent, the things that we did, that it will be weighed in scale as to whether we will be worthy to be numbered among the elect. And I pray, God willing, that all of us will be included as being worthy. God bless all. Good night.